So I decided to put the little hotel on it and pull codes because the snapper wouldn't look at it. As you can see, there's rakes of code. But the one that kept reappearing when we took it for a test drive is this P1130, fuel pressure malfunction leak detected. So that, just ignore that, the one below it, the P0190, that was me, I caused that one. But you can see there's other codes in there, and one's in the airbag module, but that's because it had been adapted for a disabled passenger. Sliding door, anti-lock brakes, there's codes everywhere. So where do you take direction from this thing? So what I decided to do next was pin out the fuel rail sensor again. I'll show you this and I'll show you what I thought of this. So I decided to pin out the ground, the 5 volt reference and the sensor signal using 2 channels and the ground lead. And because the leads were quite long, I could put the Verus in the car and take it for a drive. And the next thing I'll do, I'll show you the waveform that I got from that. So here is the capture I took with the Verus of the fuel pressure sensor before we went any further. Well, before we went any further, I'd been a long time at the job, scratching my head, so I finally decided to do this. So I took it for a run. So when we were going just along a flat bit of ground and you hit just over 2000 revs, you can see there the pressure is maintained at, there we go, 1.18 volts. So this is the car actually running. So it then goes to cut out, so it's this bit here is when I'm saying it's running out of fuel or something happened to the fuel, but you can see the downward slope, and when the pressure goes under a volt, so there you go, 0.982, that's when it cuts to the injectors. But it does a funny thing here. You can see that actually the pressure starts to rise again. So there it goes to 1.2 volts, so that's like running pressure. So to me, it runs out of fuel and then it makes a final push and it puts them in, but I think by the time the ECU's had enough and it just packs in, or I don't know what goes on here. But my friend had talked about the injectors maybe dumping fuel due to a fault, but what I thought was interesting was this tail off here. Now when injectors, well, what I've read and what I understand, when injectors dump fuel, it's immediate, and that line would go right down there. But if you look at this line here, let me see, 6.4, go to there, we'll go into there, we'll come along to there. So between that point there, when the engine finally stops, and that point there, say when my tree stops, I quit too early, but never mind. So there it's 0.1, it's 1.2 volts, so that's running voltage, and cursor 2, which is there, you can see that's 0.557, so that's key on, engine off. So between these 2 points, delta time, that is approximately 4.5 seconds. So that's actually quite a good decay rate. So that said to me there wasn't actually any pressure getting dumped from the rail, either through the injectors or the leak off valve or anything like that. So that is a normal decay rate. So when that fault code says leak detected, I'm then saying to myself, well, it's certainly not on the output side, it's not in the common rail, so it must be when it's bringing the fuel in that the problem is. And I think that's what we're seeing here. Fuel pressure's dropping because we're not getting it into the thing. So if anybody else can illuminate me on this, but I thought that my theory sounds quite good anyway, so you chime and see what you think. So let's go to the next trace. Oh sorry, back to that trace again. What I decided to do, so that's my 5 volt, I wanted to see if my 5 volts kept with it all the time. So that showed me that my computer was kept alive, and I actually grounded within the sensor. So that proved that the ground of the sensor and that was going to the computer, so that was fair enough. Now my next trace is when I really reached the end of my tether. I decided to put the 4 channels on, and I left the Verus on the windscreen because the leads are just not long enough. So but I finally decided to do it, and that's when the thing decided to go right. So I'll let you see these traces. It's quite interesting actually. So we'll go that one, or that one, and we'll go back to that one. So the yellow channel is the fuel pressure sensor. So you see that's 1.1. This is just idling because nothing actually happened. The green channel, that's the inlet metering valve. So you see that duty cycles between 0 and 14 volts. So that's pulse width modulated. So when you accelerate, the bit at the bottom here actually opens up. The duty cycle opens up to about 40%. So this is idle, as I said. So what I was trying to do with this trace was see what fell out first. What dropped out first? Was it the pressure or was it the injectors? Or could I see the pressure drop and then the injectors drop? So I'm scratching my head, I'll be honest with you. So the blue trace is injectors. That was not, I think I just went into number 4 just to see a firing event there, so you can see that there. And the red trace, I went for the camshaft sensor because I was actually trying to get the air mass meter and I think my connections, I don't know what happened, but I went for them anyway. So you can see that if anybody's working on a car like that, there is a normal trace. But what I thought was quite interesting was between that camshaft and that camshaft, you go 1, 2, 3, 4 injection events on the injector 4. So that would be 16 events with all the injectors between 2 camshaft triggers. I take it that's one. I can't remember anyway. That's a trace for something to go with anyway. So that was me using the Veris with the 4 scopes. I then decided to do an injector leak-off test. This car got everything. So you can see there, that wee bit of air is just because there's air in the line. There was nothing wrong with these. So you can see the fill rate's pretty good. Is it something like you meant to have 20 mil and less than 20 mil and under a minute? I can't remember the figures, but these injectors look fine. And the other thing that I done is when we drove the car and just before it cut out, I ran along with the car to watch it. Should I say trotted along? And the injectors, it was a constant flow rate. I never seen one dropping off excess fuel. You know what I mean? One would be bigger than another. So this is after a few minutes. So the injector flow rate was fine, nor did you get that noise. You know what you get when injectors are getting rid of fuel. It chatters away. So these checked out fine to me. So I ruled them out on the basis of this test. Although that test is, you really need to get them bench tested to have them to check, because there's pilots, pre-pilots, post-pilots. Injectors are complicated. Anyway, so I ruled out the injectors at this stage. Hello everybody, back at this Chrysler Voyager. So this is the one when you go along the road, it cuts out as soon as you put your near 2000 revs. So I'll put my foot on the pedal and you'll see, let me see, I think it's got rev limiting on it, so it just only goes up that far, but I'll let you watch the scan tool and just see if I can figure this out. So that, I put my foot to the floor. Foot back up. So at this point, rather than taking it for a run, because I couldn't, because every time it cut out, the scan tool cut out because it was so slow and the communication was unreliable. So I just sat and revved it up and just watched figures here to see if anything stuck out, but there was nothing. But it's like that sync signal, INIT, that's, I spoke to Keith DeFazio and he says that's absolutely meaningless. So you're like, is the crank cam out of sync? No, it wasn't. So if any's ever working on one, here's just some figures. There's the fuel rail set point, so that's at 330 bar when you're revving this up. So which seems a bit low, but I've never worked on one, so I'm not really sure what the pressure should be. I thought it was 170 bar, so I just thought rev the thing up, just keep looking at the scan tool, because sometimes you've just got to run. What else can you do? You're stuck. You're in a cul-de-sac. There's nowhere to go. So, but I could not see nothing on the scan tool, but I just thought this would be useful to include in the video for anybody else to give them a good knowing when the thing was actually working. So see that lift pump relay off. That's because, as I said to there's no lift pump. What else was there? I think we're just about at the last page here. I'm just revving the thing up, but so I left the car at this and had another sleepless night. Well, you know how it is when you work on cars. Oh man. Then I popped in for the codes of the transmission control module, which I believe is the same, but we got this 124 throttle position sensor signal circuit. And I was completely confused by this point. And then we went to the scan tool and seen this. You had pins that were coming and going. Sometimes they were reading and then they were dropping out. And you're like, is the problem in electrical in this car? Because I've never seen anything like this before. And I had another scan tool that I could put on. I just had to depend on, well, this is not my hotel, this is my friend's hotel. In fact, this is quite a good wee hotel. This is quite quick. It's quicker than the old one I've got. But the pins kept coming and going, and you're like, oh man, where do we go from here? So that was another red herring I'm going to tell you at this point. So you can ignore this bit if you ever experienced. Well, if you ever experienced that, it's good for you to see. But this was nothing to do with it. So you've seen that in the fuel rail pressure sensor. So what else do we have up here? That's the map sensor, and that's the camshaft sensor. So the problem, I reckon, really, although it's still a wee bit of a mystery, we checked airs and everything, is down at this prime pump. Now, I don't know if you can see it from here. Actually, it helps, see this, the reservoir for the power steering pump, it helps to remove that to the side. Just sees 3 bolts and you can get an access. But if you see down there, just at the side of the pump, see that? There's a bleed nipple there. Now, when we were working on that and we were pressing that priming thing there at the side, we actually watched a wee bit of fluid come out of that. And all I have to do was give that a wee bit turn and it tightened up, and I managed to get greater resistance when I was priming the pump. But even when we done that, we took it for a run, it was still cutting out. So trying to figure out how we fixed it. So one of my theories is, after we done that, I allowed it to idle for half an hour, and then after that, I think this is probably the best theory, that it primed itself, it got rid of the air itself after half an hour. So that's one theory. The other theory was, you seen my scope, my 4-trace scope, so I had pinned into the fuel rail pressure sensor, I'd pinned into the cam sensor, into the injector, and where else did I pin into? I pinned into something else, can't remember at this moment, but into this, the valve down on the pump, and there, what do you call that, the fuel intake valve, because this is a suction pump. So I think you can actually see that this is a suction pump. See when it's got these fins on the end there, end of the pump, that's got a little vacuum in. So maybe I disturbed something in there. I think that seemed less likely. Or the other place I touched was down at this air strap. So I wonder, even just touching this air strap, maybe it was an air conditioner after all. But we'll wait and see if it comes back or not. I mean, I've had it out 3 or 4 runs and it pulls like a train, as they would say. So other things to point out, if you're putting a scan tool on this, man, it is so slow. It's unbelievably slow to communicate. So you just got to wait. The other thing, if you want a wiring diagram, go to BBB Industries. They've got some great wiring diagrams here for this vehicle. So if I think of anything else, I'll put it in the video. As I said, it was well known for these things to crack in here, but ours seems to have good pressure. Well, it's got pressure, but I wouldn't say that it still moves, so it's strange. Anyway, cheers. There we go. We can boot it. It gets over 3,000 revs now. No bother at all. Hallelujah. We finally cracked it. That was painful. I suppose the lessons here is, I think, see when you're dealing with common rail diesels, I think the first thing you can do is go back and service it yourself. And I think that cuts out a lot of the basic areas. So, I mean, I've had to do that with cars before. You've just got to really start at the beginning. And even though someone else says they've serviced it, just go and do it yourself so you can check the basics. Anyway, cheers. So I think I'll just give you a little review what I learned about Chrysler. I mean, we're not used to them here in the UK because it's an American vehicle, but so here's just a couple of things. So this is the TIPM here, and I said to you in the last video, this is actually they call this the lift pump relay, but the funny thing about this one is it's numbered differently for what we have normally. So pin 30 is usually constant power and 87 is power out. Now this one had constant power, which was pin 87, and the power out was pin 30, but when I took my test light and went for battery positive and put it down through pin 30, which I thought was going to the pump, the light didn't light, so I thought the pump had an open circuit. But as I've said to you already, within the tank there ain't no pump, so that was a total red herring. The other things to point out in this car is you can actually, once the battery's out, you can tip this fancy fuse box, and underneath there's an important earth point, so if you're having problems, once the battery's out, tip that over and you'll see the earth point just down underneath there. Clean that up and reattach it. The other things we'll have here is the actual ECU. Now this is a Bosch system, and I believe this is a tamper-proof setting that's on it. Now I think I'm right in saying that this is called a powertrain control module because the engine management and the transmission, I'm sure, is complete within this one module. Don't quote me on that, but somebody can chime in if they know any different. So the other common problems can be with these, and this was through Steve at Simply Diagnostics told me about this one. This is a common rail here. So at the end here we'll have a leak-off pipe, and this is a high pressure leak-off valve. Should the rail experience overpressure, it would just send excess fuel back into the return line, and these can be known to leak. Now the way I tested it, I just took that rail off, clamped it and let the car idle, but there wasn't any fuel coming out this, and I even tried at higher RPM and there was nothing coming out, so that ruled that one out. Steve also told me that on this car it can sit and idle all day, but it can suffer from a blocked cat. So he said the way to catch it is just go to the air mass meter, pin that out, and as the revs rise you should see the airflow decrease. But as you've seen in the PID figures, I didn't experience that, so that was okay. Another friend told me that he reckoned that the injectors, faulty injectors, so you've seen, I done a leak-off test, I'll show you that, but I didn't hear the classic, you know, that click 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 noise if you get an injector just dumping with fuel. And I'll show you actually the fuel rail pressure sensor. What hit this?